Good evening, Comanche County. I'm Rarchar Tortorello. I want to welcome you all to the Comanche County GOP Podcast. Charla Hildner is on vacation, and her vice chair, Dell Galloway, is sitting in. Dell, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Just had an enjoyable weekend.
The weekend was fantastic. I think the weather was great. Of course, we had a tornado touchdown in Oklahoma over the weekend. Thank God nobody was hurt. But we have a special guest tonight, Lewis Jackson, who's running in District 64. Right, Lewis?
That's right. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You know, Washington keeps pushing more rules, more pressure on energy, and it lands the same way every time. Higher costs, tighter margins, fewer jobs here at home. So who's pushing back? Dell?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
it should be the consumers because it's really affecting our pocketbooks.
It is.
I agree.
Go ahead. There's an echo here and a delay.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I agree, and we also need to be sure that our state regulators and our lawmakers in the state are, fighting for the jurisdiction that they have to set, uh, energy policy and not just roll over anytime DC tries to come in and regulate something that's really a position of the state.
Absolutely. And before we go any further, Lewis, I'm not sure if a lot of people know who you are in the Lawton area, but can you go ahead and just start by telling us a little bit something about yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Lewis Jackson. I'm a Republican candidate for House District 64. I grew up right here in the district. I went to Sullivan Village Elementary School, MacArthur Middle School, MacArthur High School. Then went off to OU, but Lawton has always been home, always will be home. So I'm incredibly proud to be running unopposed in the Republican primary, and I wear it as a badge of honor that I'm the Republican candidate for my hometown and for my home legislative seat. It's really the honor of a lifetime, honestly.
And you are a first time candidate, correct?
Yes, I am.
So, how does it feel running for office for the very first time? You've heard a lot of people speak about it. You probably watched a lot of people run for office. But personally, what do you think about it so far?
I am so shocked by just how generous and gracious everyone's been, be it on the doorstep or for instance, this today at lunch, I took my mother to lunch after church, and um,
Mm.
somebody stopped me, in the restaurant, and you know, people have just been so incredibly nice. I even it was like my first day door knocking, and I had a lot of nerves as a first time candidate probably would, and one of the very first doors I knocked on, the woman answered, and she was so nice, and she took, you know, 5 minutes to pray over me and pray with me on the doorstep, and that's when I knew that I, that was a sign to me that I was doing this for the right reasons, and that
Mm.
this was a bigger thing than just me.
Absolutely. Now Dell is sitting in for the county GOP chair, Charla, and he is the vice chair of the GOP. Dell, I want to thank you for coming on tonight and sitting in. I know you and I have met face to face a couple times last year during the fight for state question or against state question 836, the open primaries. So going back to energy, which opened up the show, how are people feeling down in Comanche County when it comes to gas prices? I know that since we've been in the war with Iran, prices across the state have risen, but I think they're starting to come down. Are you guys starting to feel the pinch down there too as well?
Well, I'm sure everybody's feeling some kind of squeeze. The energy costs are talked about all the time. We're seeing it not just in the gas stations, but you're also seeing it in your home heating and in energy bills within electricity and natural gas. Everybody is trying to make their money stretch, and when you get hit real hard on one end, it's kind of hard to make it up on the other end.
So it's so are you guys also in Oklahoma City? I think the average cost was $3.39 for just regular unleaded, and our cars take the premium one, which is even worse. It's over $4 now, but I'm seeing the prices come down. When it comes to energy, Lewis, this question is for you. Your time at the Corporation Commission, I think that's where the fights are at when it comes for energy. Is that correct? What exactly did you do there?
Yeah, so I served as a policy advisor to Commissioner Brian Bingman, who's the newest commissioner on the Corporation Commission. He's been there a little bit over a year. And yeah, basically, as the commission, you're kind of the supposed to be the scales of balance between meeting the needs for the utilities, but also, you know, also the needs and affordability for the consumer. The consumer advocate for energy usage, utility usage, is statutorily the Attorney General, and the Commission serves as kind of the balance of trying to strike that balance between, like I said, the needs of the utilities and the consumer. And then on the oil and gas side, they permit drilling and of oil and gas wells. So if you're going to drill a well in Oklahoma, you have to get the commission to sign off to make sure that they make sure that mineral owners and surface owners, their rights aren't infringed. And sometimes these oil companies get into battles with one another, and they kind of have to be the arbiter of that. So
Nothing like landman, right? Is it pretty much civil then?
yeah, it is civil. My boss, Commissioner Bingman, his first job in his career was as a landman, and people really, they were like, "Is that show true? Is that show real?" And he just always tell them, "Yeah, every single bit of it," because that's exactly how it works. But obviously,
You cut out again. There you go. Dell, I know oil's a big deal down in Lawton, but do you have any questions for Lewis on his time on the Corporation Commission?
No, not really. I know some more. I know another side of the Corporation Commission dealing with law enforcement. The regulatory side of it with the trucking and the waterways and the ports of entry and stuff like that. So I know the Corporation Commission is pretty vast and everything. And I think you might have just pretty much stayed on one other side of it.
yeah,
What?
I dealt
What?
some with that component, but not. It wasn't necessarily my specialty, but it is interesting the oversized and overweight trucks. It was really neat. I got to go tour some of the different ports of entries and way stations and meet some of the officers down there and learn just really how vital that is, especially that type of enforcement that those officers do. It really helps save a lot of crumbling infrastructure because some of these oversized, overweight trucks will try to find bypass routes, and the commission
I,
puts a lot of that.
I see a lot of that down here in my neck of the woods because we do not have a port of entry down here on I-44, which is our main corridor. And
Yep.
just watching our roads get destroyed and seeing these trucks that I know are overweight, which I'm running around in and out of my jurisdiction because I work tribal. But I see the way these
Mm.
vehicles are destroying our roadway. But luckily, I understand that the Corporation Commission is putting a port of entry down here near Geronimo. So maybe that will help curtail some of the issues we at least have down in this end of the state.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, Lewis, if you're elected, can you ensure that happens? I know things get on the books, things are discussed, but when it comes to actually happening here, do you think, as an elected official representing that district, that you can work well with the county commissioners to ensure that actually happens?
Yeah, I that would be something that I'd love to work on. Obviously, given my time at the Corporation Commission, it's something I probably would know better than a lot of the other issues I'm going to be faced with legislating on. But yeah, I think it would be great if we could get a port of entry and way station down here.
Let's go to your time. You also worked, I was reading your bio, in the Secretary of State's office. So you know how the
Yep.
building works, you know the players. What exactly did you do in the Secretary of State's office again?
Yeah, so I was the first point of contact for the House. I was a liaison to the House of Representatives. So a lot of the times it was dealing with constituent issues, trying to, when somebody would call their um, legislator with an issue that they were having with our department, our agency, I would help them kind of get that resolved, and then and that was a really eye opening experience, and you know, sadly, sometimes agencies don't really hold themselves accountable until an elected official steps in and kind of directs them, and we need to find ways to streamline bureaucracy and enable our agencies to respond more fast and effectively to constituent requests. It shouldn't take you going to your state legislator and them having to call somebody and kind of in the position I was in to get an answer from a state agency.
Well, sometimes that's what your legislator is there for. If you can't get an answer, you know, you're usually the first one they call. While your time in the in the Secretary of State's office, um, did you said you work with the legislatures, but did you have a lot of contact with the constituents as well?
I didn't really personally, but there were other people in the agency doing that, but um, yeah, I worked mainly with legislators.
Dale, you have a question for him?
No, I guess one thing, will you leverage your relationships to try and get our voices heard down here?
I had a conversation the other day with some constituents about how I think for far too long Lawton has kind of played the role of second fiddle to Oklahoma City and Tulsa. I'm going to leverage every opportunity I have and every connection I have to make sure that that doesn't happen anymore. I want us to be at the table,
Mm.
and yeah, I look forward to using the relationships that I have to make sure that that happens.
You know, I'm always fascinated when it comes to candidates and guests, and they have what I call specialized education. So I'm reading your bio, and it says here that you are an alumnus of the 2021 OCPA Dr. Rufus Fears Fellowship Program. So tell us, how did you how did you get into that program?
Well, um, that program, I think I was in its second class, and I had some friends do it in their inaugural class, and they just raved about it. And I knew Dr. Rick Farmer, who was the dean of
Mm.
the fellowship at the time, and so Dr. Farmer encouraged me to apply, and man, that was the better than any civics education I'd ever received. I mean, I don't know if you guys know who Dr. Fears was. He's passed away, but he was a long time um, government teacher or professor at OU. And I wish he would have been a professor when I was at OU, because just watching his recorded lectures and then Dr. Farmer's lessons on those lectures were just amazing.
Mm. I've heard a lot about him. Now, OCPA, have you done any work with that organization, or you just received the fellowship through them?
I did the fellowship through them, and I'm still pretty involved in terms of I try to recruit fellows for them in the next classes, and have been able to direct some young conservatives to the fellowship. I think I had 3 or 4 people that I recommended go through it just earlier this year, and so I haven't ever really worked in an official capacity with them, but I do try to help foster that fellowship and get good people plugged in there.
Roger that. Dell, back to you, bro.
Okay. Um, so I know that there is a formula when it comes to money that's being provided to the counties for roads.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there for a while it was dependent on the oil and gas traffic in the areas, if I remember correctly. Um, Comanche County has a lot of rural roads that get beat up by overweight trucks and stuff like that. We don't have a lot of oil and gas, so we get basically the same uh, formula as a smaller county that has a population of 10 to 12,000, and here we are well over 120. So we have a
Yep.
lot more cars on the road, but yet we're not getting uh, what I would call adequate funding for roads. Um, I think we were getting 4,100 uh, a road mile, and there's some counties that are getting like 20,000 a road
Mm.
mile. I mean,
Wow.
what could be done about maybe? I know that they just worked this formula recently. Maybe let's go back and take a look at it again, and let's look at it in a more common sense way. I'm not trying to, take money from anybody, but I think money should be given fairly so that everybody has at least decent roads. I'm not saying, DOT, top of the line, ready to
Mm.
go, but at least something because, I mean, the I don't even know if I want to say this is the toughest thing around here is dodging the potholes.
Yeah.
And I know the commissioners are trying, but they're on a limited budget with road money.
Is there a question in there, Dell?
Yeah, can we revisit the formula?
Yeah, that's an issue I would love to get into, and I mean, I'll be the first to admit I'm not an expert on every issue that's going to come to me
Mm.
at the legislature, and that's why I really want to lean on people who do have that expertise, lean on my constituents.
Mm-hmm.
That I want to be as accessible as possible. So when issues like this come up, that I'm not a civil engineer. I don't know anything really about road building or anything, but I just want to always be accessible to work on these issues. And infrastructure is one of my priorities. Something I do want to work on. So yeah, I'd love to take a look and see if does that formula make sense. Do we need to change it, and what can we do to better position Comanche County?
That's a good question and good answer. We've got a viewer question. Dr. Elizabeth Pleasant from Lawton has asked you what are some changes in the energy sector that you want to change or improve?
Yeah. So primarily, I mean, the number one thing I get asked about on the doorstep is about data centers and this new surge in electricity demand that we're going to see. Um, Mainly, what I want to do and what I want to work on is ensuring that residential ratepayers are protected from this huge influx of data centers, and that residential customers are not subsidizing these trillion-dollar companies like Meta and Google who want to build data centers. I just want to ensure that the residential ratepayers don't bear the brunt for those large companies if they choose to come here and are permitted to do so by the people who allow that, which is actually it's county commissioners that have that local jurisdiction to allow that zoning for data centers. So um,
Mm-hmm. Well, data centers are big in the news. Trump's move to dominate AI here in America. His policy on AI data centers is that he'd much rather have them here in America than have them overseas in say China, for example, here. So I know data centers in Oklahoma are a huge issue. And I think what the people are complaining about is the energy consumption, which might raise the rates for consumers, and I'm gonna put a slash there. The water and what they do with the water they use and need to cool the microprocessors down. So since Trump wants the data centers, and I know that some people, I had a conversation with a man the other day here in Cleveland County, and they're installing data centers that are environmentally neutral. In other words, where they find their own energy source like natural gas, and their reclamation process for the wastewater is reutilized. And I'll have them on the show next week. But I think if they promote data centers with that in mind, again, not to raise rates, not to consume and increase the consumption of electricity, but find like natural gas and find a safe way to reuse, and maybe hopefully not. I think the word release is probably a bad word. The wastewater. Would you consider championing that for Oklahoma? Because if it's not this district, it's going to be another district in Oklahoma that will bring in these data centers here that are environmentally neutral.
Right. Yeah. And I think the president is right that we don't want these, I think his main concern is China and India developing these data centers and us not. But yeah, just like I said, some of the things you mentioned, those are the kind of protections that I'm have in mind for residential ratepayers for sure. Subsidies for these data centers should not be on the backs of the residential ratepayers.
A lot of people say a lot of people don't want to be, saddled with those prices or the money, because they're not making the dividends at the ends like the CEOs are.
Right.
Yeah. Anytime you bring in and push something on the back of the consumers or the constituents, no one likes that. I can tell you that. June, not only will they have the primaries in June, but state question on the minimum wage. Where do you stand on that question that will, if it's passed, will make $15 the new minimum wage for Oklahoma? Good idea, bad idea?
Bad idea. Absurd idea. I don't support a raise in the minimum wage to begin with. I surely don't support a ballot initiative that raises it to $15. I mean, that's just, they pulled that number out of thin air. I think the free market needs to be what determines a competitive wage. I was having a conversation over the weekend with a friend of mine and talking about, there's a reason that a lot of fast food restaurants, Target, Walmart, I haven't seen a job advertised at the minimum wage in years. I mean, the free market is doing its job. I would not support that. My opponent in November, she's already come out in favor of it and spoken publicly about it. That's a big difference between me and her. I am not in favor of that state question.
Well, why we have to import policies from California. So, their minimum wage destroyed their local economy, all right, if not the entire state's economy. And these groups that come in and they bring these questions in and they hire canvassers to go out and sign a petition that they're not really aware of. And you're right. And Dell, you can probably back me up on this. I have not found a job where someone starts at minimum wage, except in the restaurant business, all right? But like my wife's practice, everyone is they get paid $25 an hour to start. All right. So when they come in and make this a mandatory thing, it's going to kill this economy, Dell.
Yeah. And a lot of people they need to read fully into that bill or that state question, because there's an accelerator on the end of it that will actually push the minimum wage above 15 an hour over the next few years. And I want to think it caps out at like $30 an hour within the next 8 to 10 years. I can't remember the exact numbers. You're talking about a bunch of companies going under, especially the mom and pops, the local companies that we want to strive to support and bring the money back into the community, because those are the ones. Those are the people that are sending their kids to dance or baseball camp or something like that. Those are the ones we need to be taken care of, not saddling with a $30 an hour minimum wage in the long run. So
Well,
go
and
ahead.
what a disservice we would be doing to our young people, our high school students, our college students who need that work experience and, you know, won't have that opportunity if you see it raised to $30 an hour.
Absolutely. I agree.
Talk about, we got to set our young people up for success. If they can't go get a job, part-time job in middle school or in high school and college, that's a disservice.
Now I got now. There's a guy here who's got 4 questions. His name is Raymond, and I'm gonna go back to the minimum wage question. So, um, he says you don't agree on the 750 minimum wage. I mean, so that's what it is now. I don't know. So 750 is what it is now. I think Raymond, if I'm reading your questions correctly, are you advocating for state question 832 to pass? Because he also says that more money makes more happy citizens, and I disagree with that. And I do agree with you, and I think most of our viewers say that the minimum wage is there for a reason. It's to help our young get into the workforce. It was never meant to be a living wage. It was, and I know that people's circumstances change all the time. There's a lot of feedback. Whose phone is doing the feedback? There's a lot of static, but minimum wage was not meant to be a living wage. Okay, and if I, Raymond, ask your question again clearly, because I'm not understanding what you're trying to ask. But minimum wage was never meant to be a living wage. It was meant as an entry level playing field to make to allow people to come into the workforce. But often we see divorcees, women who are recently divorced. They're entering into the workforce for the first time and maybe working in that minimum wage job. But in the last 4 or 5 years, everyone I know who has a small business has always started higher, and that's supply and demand. That's the way it should be. All right. So, Lewis, if he answers again, I'm sure you would agree that as a state representative, that having a mandatory minimum of $15 is a worst case scenario for the state of Oklahoma and for the economy overall.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you there. Yeah, that would be detrimental to Oklahoma's economy.
And speaking of state questions, I know it's no longer an issue now, but are you familiar or did you track state question 836, the open primary? I call it the open primary, scandal. But but do you think that Republican primaries and Democrat primaries should remain closed? And just speaking about the primaries, if you want to participate in the Republican primary, the easiest thing for you to do is go ahead and register as a Republican. We shouldn't allow our primaries to be open and influence. Again, another policy brought in from California. So, what was your thoughts when I was going around the state and people from OCPA discussing how bad open primaries would have hurt Oklahoma and the Republican Party?
Yeah, I mean, it's I was definitely against that. I'm so glad it didn't make it to the ballot. What's funny is Democrats had control of this state for 100 years, and just Oklahoma or Republicans have only had it for probably about 20 years, and now that the Democrats aren't in charge, they're wanting to change the rules, and it's like, don't be a sore loser. You existed under this system for 100 years, and it really was an out of state liberal push. And I mean, it would have turned Oklahoma's primary system, as you know, just same as California's. And California, the home of Republican presidents, Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon. Look at what they've devolved to with their jungle style primaries. I mean,
Absolutely.
It's just terrible.
Dell, do you have a question along the lines of the minimum wage? Your audio's off, Dell. Okay, while he's trying to figure out how to get his audio back, let's take the focus back to Lawton. Okay, so you had mentioned earlier about the conversations in District 64. So, what else are you hearing from the voters in 64?
I mean, people are concerned with affordability at large. It's not just electric prices. It's, like we talked about earlier, um, oil at the pump, fuel at the pump prices, um, home insurance rates are through the roof, astronomically. We have to do something about that. And yeah, people are just trying to stretch their stretch their dollar, and we need to make it as easy on the state level to find ways that we can enable them to do that. Um, we and then additionally, they're concerned about safety and public safety. Is a lot what people want to talk about. I want to be an advocate for our law enforcement in the legislature. I think we have good law enforcement agencies here in Comanche County. I want to advocate to continue uh, to enable them to be the best that they can be. So, but public safety, affordability, common sense stuff that I think Republican candidates should all get behind, and I don't imagine that my opponent in November will have the same view on that, just as she doesn't the minimum wage. But that's all right. It's about two different visions. I think I have a Oklahoma and Lawton first vision, and that's what I'm going to campaign on. So
Good. Dell, are you back? Audio is not working. Well, he's trying to figure out his audio. It does happen with these live shows here. So let's go to what can actually be fixed at the state level. Realistically, can you fix any of these or one of these?
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think some people have never met a tax increase they didn't like. I think we can cut fees and taxes. I think one thing that I want to work on is kind of cutting some of the more benign regulatory red tape that exists behind certain um, permitting for jobs, like nail techs, hairdressers, things that you kind of hear of people having to have a certain certification or license to do it, and it's just like, really, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But
Right.
I think reforms like that are things, yeah, we can really tackle at the state level. There shouldn't be a job that's harder to do in Oklahoma than that's easier to do in one of our surrounding states. We should be the most pro business friendly state in the region. And when I hear that we're falling behind states like Arkansas and Texas on some of these certification and permitting issues, that's troublesome.
So Raymond is back, and he clarified his question about the minimum wage. He was asking, do you agree with the minimum wage in this generation now being $7.50? So do you agree that $7.50 is a good starting point?
You know, the I guess that is the current minimum wage. I certainly don't support an increase from 750. So now there's a question to be asked. Okay, is a minimum wage at all a good thing, or should we just allow the free market to dictate that? But if we're going to have a minimum wage, I do not support an increase from its current.
And I think most Republicans would agree with you. It's a Republican platform that let the free market decide. Dell, is your microphone working, bro? All right, you're gonna have to log off and log back on. We'll get you back on the. Just log back off, log back on. You call yourself a conservative Republican. Now, I hear everyone say that, but what does that mean in practice to you?
Well, to me, it's those things I learned growing up that I really got to delve into when I did the Fierce Fellowship through OCPA. It's putting in order: God, family, country. It's supporting free markets, low taxes, and government efficiency. Um, it's really not that hard for me to explain what that means, because they're values I've had with me pretty much my whole life. I mean, I started watching news when I was very young, following politics when I was very, very young, and I'm proud to say I've always had those conservative Christian values and principles that will guide me when I'm in the legislature.
Right. And let's see. All right. Say something.
Can you
Sound
hear me
check.
now?
Perfect. Thank you. Hallelujah. Praise God.
Hey, I do have a question for Lewis. So I know that the way the rules are in the House and the Senate, that certain senators can be blocked out and not allow their bills to be heard. What can we do? I know that there's talk about something about trying to make it more equitable for everybody to get all their bills heard. I mean, what is your stance on that?
I don't really know exactly the inner workings of the House versus the Senate, but if it's a good piece of legislation, uh, you know, if it's a good conservative piece of legislation, we need to enable that to get to the floor for a full vote. And if people are blocking good conservative legislation, they that should be a strike against them, I would say.
Yeah.
What he's asking, I'm sorry, Dell, what he's asking is that I think Charles Keyes has a state question 840. And what he's asking people to do to sign the petition is that in reality, what's happening now at the state legislature, your elected officials are not allowed, or there's a roadblock that seems to be placed in certain people where their bills just aren't being heard. So it's more of a fairness issue. And what the question is, if you're an elected official, should you have the same opportunity to have your bills heard as another elected official?
Oh, absolutely. I would think so. I mean, every elected official in the legislature represents the same number of Oklahomans, and that's by design. Everybody should be granted that opportunity to represent the people who elected them and do it effectively.
Mm. Dell, I
Is
thought,
it boil,
is that what you meant,
it just
Dell?
boil, yeah, because it just boils down, if certain representatives or senators aren't getting their bills heard, then their people aren't being represented. Then it gets skewed, and other areas are getting better representation than others, and it should be fair.
Absolutely.
We got a question here. So, Chris Coots and Pat Carpenter. The guy in the black suit is Lewis Jackson. He is the Republican candidate for House District 64. Charlotte Hildner says, "Hey, fellas, it's me, and I'm on the road. Lewis, will you complete the OK GOP platform survey?"
Yeah, I when I was speaking at the college Republicans on Wednesday, she asked the same question, and I was like, "Yeah, if I can get through it, it's it's like 85 questions. I haven't even read it all, but from what I have seen, it's all common sense Republican stuff. I Yeah, when I can find time to do it, I would like to sit down and read all 85 questions through it. But
I actually gone through it myself. Just I had we have a client that needs to go through it, and I actually sat down and I was, it is one of the longer surveys that candidates have to fill out. Dell, if you're ever bored one night, you need to go to the platform and just fill out that survey, because now it is long, thorough, and the whole thing is that if you agree with 80% of the platform, then the GOP can support you. And I'm going to ask you a question, but then I'm going to ask Lewis a question. So, Dell, have you gone through the survey yourself personally?
I personally have not. I have been a political candidate 3 other times, so I know that surveys are important. and some of them can get quite lengthy, but they're just trying to, if they're going to put their force and endorsement behind somebody, they want to know who they're talking about.
Absolutely. It goes back to that question I asked you, Lewis, is that, everyone says they're a conservative Republican, they're conservative candidate. And, but sometimes, when they get elected and they get to the House, they often vote against their constituents' wishes. So one of the questions I want to ask you is that when you are elected in November, are you going to do your best to communicate with every constituent who calls, texts, or emails you? Are you going to return every text, every email, and every phone call the best you can? Because, one thing that I know that voters are very frustrated with is that you knock on our doors, you ask for our vote, and then you never call us back, never hear back from you. So, are you that kind of guy?
My dad was the kind of guy. He's retired now, but when he was working, he was the kind of guy that never left a phone call unreturned, never didn't respond to a text or an email, and that's the same way I am. I gladly give out my phone number to just about anybody who asks for it. I have even included it on my campaign literature. I mean, that's how accessible I want to be. But yeah, it's ridiculous if I was to sit here and say, no, I'm not going to, respond to the people who I work for. At the end of the day, I work for my constituents 100%. I mean, so yeah, if your boss calls you, you're going to answer.
Absolutely. Hey, Dell, let's do quick hits here. You can ask the first question. So, Lewis, he's going to, wow, there's a lot of, someone's phone or desktop is causing a lot of static. So, quick hits. Start with Dell. Ask him a question, Lewis. Wow.
Who's asking the question, me or Lewis?
You ask him a question. Quick hits. First 1 to 2 words he has to answer. This is a lightning round before we end. I'll start. Golf or tennis?
Oh,
Was that golf or tennis?
Yeah, golf or tennis. Which one?
Golf.
Okay. See, Dell, ask a question, bro.
hunting, yes or no?
I love bird hunting. Yeah. I get tired sitting in a deer stand.
That's why you take naps.
There you go. That's right. There you go. What do you do how do you reset after a long week?
Time with family, time with friends, probably watching OU athletics on TV.
Right on. Rock on. Fine. Oh, look, he's okay, Dell. Oh, okay, look. I went to OU. He's an OU graduate. So where did you go to school? And don't say, oh, there you go. OSU is a good school. Hey, I'm not knocking OSU.
If OU's not playing and OSU's on TV, I watch OSU.
Exactly. Yeah. OSU is a good school.
Pickup truck or compact car?
I drive an SUV. I don't drive either one. So, but I'd rather drive a pickup than a compact car.
Okay.
Oh, thank God you didn't say electric vehicle.
No.
All right. Hey, you had the last word. So tell us why District 64 should vote for you.
Well, District 64 should vote for me because my values are their values. I grew up in the district. The values I learned were in my church that was in the district, from my mom and dad when we lived in the district, and your concerns about affordability and high prices at the pump and public safety are my concerns. I live in the reality of our community. I don't try to talk about, national, positions to raise the minimum wage. I don't try to be anything other than one of us going to represent the issues that matter to us and live the values that we all have. So that's my pitch. November 3rd is obviously a little while down the line, but be honored to have anyone's vote that's watching and their consideration. And like I said, I'm always acceptable or always accessible. Charlotte Hildner has my contact. If you have hers, you can reach out to her and get it from her. And if not, message me on Facebook and I'll get it to you.
Well, you know what? How can people get a hold of you and find out more about your campaign? And are you willing to put your number out here on Facebook and YouTube?
Yeah. So you can go to votelewisjackson.com. My phone number is 580-583-7029. You can reach me anytime. But if you feel more comfortable submitting a request to the website, have at it. But yeah, accessible anytime.
All right, Del, I'm gonna throw it back to you before we quit. You got any announcements for the Comanche County GOP meeting?
We have our monthly meeting the third Tuesday of every month. If you want to go to our website or Facebook page, and we'll announce where the location is going to be. We're trying to secure a more permanent home, so we've kind of been nomadic for a little bit, but we're trying to get that under control.
All right, I love that. We got Lewis Jackson, candidate for State House District 64. Lewis, I want to thank you thank you for coming on the show today. And Dell, thank you for sitting in for Charla. District 64, pay attention to what's going on. Research your candidates because I think your vote matters. And we will see you next time. Good night, Oklahoma, and good night, Comanche County.
Thank you. Good night.